Sent to one of the UK's deadliest prisons, Kane stood there alone. To them, he was just another weak man in a prison full of wolves. The moment he walked in, they tested him, punched him, spit boiling coffee on his face. The punches didn't stop until something cracked in his mouth and his teeth spilled onto the floor. But what they didn't know was that this quiet man used to snap bones for money. And inside these walls, they didn't break him. They built something worse. They turned Kane into a brutal psychopath killer. A few years ago, when Kane was a struggling regular boxer, he went to his brother and asked him for money to start a business. Lincoln stops him and tells him that he can lend him the money if he does a job in return. With no other choice, Kane accepts the job without knowing what it is. Kane is told that all he has to do is steal a plastic bag from a poor woman and return it to the office. Unaware of the consequences, Kane does the robbery. Surprisingly, though, the woman starts desperately chasing after him like her life depends on that bag. The chase continues until the woman is hit by a car, and Kane, who is stunned by the scene, is immediately arrested. A few days later, he meets O'Hara, an elite detective who has spent years keeping an eye on his brother. During this meeting, he's informed that his brother runs a dirty loan business. The detective asks Kane to give up Lincoln, but even knowing all of these evil actions, Kane refuses and sticks by his brother. He's introduced to a muscular, tough interrogator named Sergeant Evans, a corrupt cop who tortures suspects for confessions without the detective's permission. Kane is severely beaten by Evans, and despite resisting with tied-up hands, Evans's hard punches eventually knock him out. He ends up in Belmarsh Prison, which is the filthiest and most violent prison and is also known as Meat Grinder. With no criminal record, he will face many challenges there. On the first day, he is attacked by a strong man for no reason. Kane attempts to defend himself, but soon finds himself in a massive fight with other inmates. After knocking down a few of them, they finally catch him and ruthlessly break his front teeth. Due to this incident, he gets metal dentures, which he kind of likes, because they make him look extremely dangerous. His mother, who was still alive at the time, pays him a visit in jail. Mrs. Burgess informs Kane that Lincoln blames him for his imprisonment, so he will not take any action. Upon hearing this, Kane feels that his loyalty to Lincoln was pointless and that his brother had abandoned him in jail, despite the fact that Lincoln was the reason he was imprisoned in the first place. Regardless of everything, he keeps his spirit and asks his mother to make sure that Lincoln calls him. Days had passed with no word from Lincoln, no meetings, no phone call, and not even a letter. Kane eventually realized that he was all alone and had to stand on his own. During his imprisonment, he was frequently attacked by other inmates, and he was never even aware of their motives. Yet he had no choice but to defend himself, so he started a challenging physical and mental program to prepare himself for the upcoming attacks. On a regular day in the prison yard, he gets into a fight with two other prisoners. Thanks to his extremely hard training program, Kane can easily knock the duo down with a few punches after severely beating them. Elated at having beaten the attackers, Kane hears something shocking and upsetting. The brutally beaten inmate informs him that his brother has set a 20,000-pound prize on his head, making it clear that this is the reason for all the attacks that happened to him day and night. Enraged by hearing this, he now had a reason to live. The desire to exact vengeance on those who had brought this disaster upon him did not allow him to easily give up. Prize money was luring more and more prisoners every day. However, Kane's motive and power increased as their number grew. Each fight resulted in a wound, a few months of additional sentences, and a few days in solitary. In order to kill Kane, the prisoners made use of every available tool, including a prison-made version of the flammable chemical liquid known as napalm, which caused his face to partially burn. Kane was slowly turning into a bloodthirsty monster who couldn't even recognize himself, a person whose only objective was to survive. And in this manner, he didn't show mercy to anyone. Even the prison guards were vulnerable to him, and several of them got seriously hurt. Kane has been imprisoned for 3 years, and one day, his mother pays him a visit to deliver bad news. He's informed that she has pancreatic cancer, and she won't be able to see him too much. Collapsed by hearing this, Kane is unable to explain to his mother what a terrible thing Lincoln did, as he's now his mother's only confidant. A long time had passed, and Mrs. Burgess's condition had deteriorated. Detective O'Hara pays a visit to Kane, who is in the hospital being treated for one of his regular conflicts. In this meeting, it becomes clear to Kane that Sergeant Evans, the corrupt officer who brutally tortured him, was one of Lincoln's ears and was working for him as a spy. Detective O'Hara tells Kane that he had Evans fired as soon as he found out about the matter and that he knows Lincoln wants him dead. So he asks him again to give up Lincoln. This time, Kane agrees to give the detective what he wants, in trade for one last meeting with his dying mother. Kane is being taken to the hospital to visit his ailing mother, escorted by a high-security team. When he gets to his mother's bed, he realizes that she has just passed away, And if he had arrived a little earlier, he might have had a chance to say goodbye to her. After spending the last moments with his mother in the elevator, he surprises the guards and unexpectedly begins beating them. He is so fast and brutal that they have no time to defend themselves, and their resistance costs them being knocked out and falling through the elevator floor. He then rushes to the hospital back door and makes a successful getaway. In the following scene, Kane can be seen attempting to enter a private bar but is stopped by the bouncers. After a few fistfights, Kane is able to easily knock them down and enter the bar. During a smooth conversation with a talkative but cheeky bartender named Bez, he introduces himself as a member and asks for a long glass of beer. While sipping his drink, he tries to overhear the conversations of a group of people seated on the opposite side of the bar. They are members of a gang that has recently limited its activities due to the murder of one of its members named Rook and the disappearance of the accountant. Toon, one of the gang members who witnessed Rook's murder, begins describing it. In his version of the story, while they are selling drugs at their usual hangout, suddenly they notice someone standing nearby and staring at them in the darkness of night. As Toon is busy with the customer, Rook approaches him with no fear and tries to figure out what the person wants and why he is staring at them. When he is not given an answer, Rook flares up and attempts to punch him in the face. But suddenly, he is struck by an axe, causing his hand to be severed and falling to the ground covered in blood. Toon asserts that after seeing the incident, he went after the murderer and made him run away in fear. At this moment, Kane cracks up and begins mocking Toon because he thinks the guy is not tough enough to make someone flee. He claims that Toon is lying, and he was the one who actually ran away like a coward after Rook was killed. Enraged by Kane's words, Toon denies everything and begins threatening him. The entire gang follows him and gets ready for a fight, but when Kane reveals that he's actually the maniac killer, they all back off out of fear. Bez starts screaming and telling Kane that he can no longer stay in her bar and has to leave right now. Meanwhile, the recently awakened bouncers enter the bar and attempt to beat Kane. But in a matter of seconds, Kane overpowers them, and by pulling out a double-barreled shotgun, he shows them how dangerous he can be. Kane almost takes the entire gang hostage and demands the location of their boss, a crooked loan shark and corrupt businessman named Lincoln, who does anything to make illegal money, and ironically, he's also Kane's brother. But instead, he gets Hyde, Lincoln's most trusted assistant who vividly remembers Kane. He introduces Kane to the rest of the gang as the boss's brother, who had made a mistake and ended up in prison. Hyde is also not afraid to make fun of Kane's facial scars and any possible harassment he may have experienced while he was imprisoned. At this point, one of the bouncers attacks Kane, but before he can reach him, he gets shot in the kneecap, causing his leg to be shattered. As he's in terrible pain, he starts screaming in terror, so Kane decides to kick him in the face and knock him unconscious. Despite all the violence Hyde has seen, he doesn't think Kane is Rook's killer, due to Toon's remarks. Therefore, Kane solves the problem by showing them Rook's severed hand in a plastic bag, opened by Toon. Now that everyone knows Kane is a cold-blooded, ruthless killer with a shotgun in his hand, they have no choice but to obey his orders. After beating Hyde, Kane blames him and Lincoln for his imprisonment and orders him to call his brother and bring him here. Two gang members insist that they must use the restroom right away, but Kane doesn't allow them and orders them to do it here. Hyde, tired of Kane's rambling stories, tries to act brave and tells him to do whatever he wants to do. So Kane gets him down on his knees and warns him that whatever he says after that will be his final words. Meanwhile, Lincoln arrives with 3 of his men and is surprised to see his brother. Kane, who has seen his number one enemy, becomes more hostile and disarms them, then sends them to the rest of the gang. Kane is almost ready to retaliate, but he demands a compelling explanation for why Lincoln wanted to kill him first. After pulling off the failed blood brother drama, Lincoln eventually admits that he had no choice but to do it because one of his spies found out that Kane was planning to snitch on them. Kane, who knows about Evans, tells him that he was given false information, and instead of his own brother, he chose to trust a corrupt police officer who is no longer able to work for him because Kane recently passed by him at his new workplace and, after a long struggle, killed him with a hammer blow to the head. Impressed by his brother's intelligence and meticulous planning, Lincoln promises him a new life and a fresh start. Kane ignores Lincoln's words and instead shoots Hyde and brutally cracks his head, which brings him a sudden death that is more painful for the witnesses. Lincoln, who is still dealing with the terrible death of his best assistant, faces the next strike from Kane. It is hard for him to believe, but only 1,500 pounds are left in his account. Apparently, Evans's workplace was not his only stop after escaping, and he also went to Stokes. Back to the meeting day with Stokes, he attempts to intimidate Kane by pulling out a shotgun, but Kane takes it as a joke and easily disarms him. In exchange for his life, Stokes agrees to give Kane whatever he wants, so he donates the entire 2.2 million pounds in his account to the families that Lincoln's loan business has impacted. Lincoln is left with nothing but his gang. He thinks Kane will be killed this night, as there are only 2 bullets left for him and they are 10 in number. However, Kane says that he only needs one of those bullets, and it's for Lincoln. When Lincoln notices Bez is going to attack Kane from behind, he continues the trash talk. While Kane is distracted by his brother's remarks, Bez hits him in the head with a bottle and sparks a fierce fight there. Kane immediately shoots one of the gangsters in the chest, but then he is quickly attacked by others, causing him to be disarmed. Unable to fight Kane hand-to-hand, the gangsters begin throwing glasses and bottles at him, until Bez gives them a bag full of iron rods, hammers, and knives so they can slay him. Even these weapons are useless against Kane's unbreakable body and his combat skills, and they are harshly beaten one after another. As usual, Toon is scared and runs off, but this time he returns with a submachine gun and starts shooting at Kane. In a funny way, none of Toon's shots hit him, and after killing one of his own gang by accident, Kane takes his gun and uses the small gift he just received to slaughter a few more. The remaining tough guys are able to attack Kane several times with kicks, punches, and knives. However, one by one they are slaughtered in a horrible way. One by breaking his arm and striking him hard in the head, one by vampire-like biting in the neck, and one by repeatedly stabbing him in the throat. At this point, only Bez, Lincoln, and Kane are left. With a shotgun pointed at Kane, Lincoln tells him that he doesn't care whether the man wanted to snitch on him or not. He had put a bounty on his head simply because he was ruining Kane's reputation among his partners. After revealing the truth, Lincoln pulls the trigger, but he is surprised to find that there are no bullets left. Kane, who was aware that the gun was empty, snickers at him, glad that he didn't fall for Lincoln's earlier deceptions. Lincoln lashes out at Kane, attempting to stab him with a knife that Bez gave him. A classic man-to-man knife struggle ensues, and Lincoln is finally punished for his evil actions with a stab from his brother. Kane, who appears to have no desire to murder a woman, even a shrew who wanted to kill him, leaves the Bez with the corpses of those she has served for a lifetime. At the end, we see one of Lincoln's prey, surprisedly looking at his account balance, which indicates that Kane has been able to partially make up for his brother's misdeeds. Aside from Kane's satisfaction, the retaliation has benefited the prey and Detective O'Hara as well. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to Sigma Recaps, where every movie has a deeper meaning and every character has something to prove. Got a film you want us to break down next? Drop it in the comments. We're watching. Until next time, stay Sigma.